Welcome back. It's now 24 minutes to 7. This is the early edition of Kivumbi 2017. Now, schools are set to reopen next week amid a raft of education reforms by the Ministry of Education. Among the lined-up reforms to be effected starting Tuesday next week is a unique personal identification, UPI, that is meant to help curb cheating examinations. The ministry is also set to introduce a capitation and human resource management system dubbed National Education Management Information System, or abbreviated as NEMIS. The system is expected to get rid of about 420,000 ghost students. These changes are coming up in the third term when Class 8 and Form 4 students are expected to sit their examinations. Now, in studio, I have two gentlemen with me. We have Amos Kaburu, who's a Senior Programs Officer at Twaweza, and Andiwo Obondo, an Education Specialist. Good morning and thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Let me start with you, Amos, who's on my extreme right. And the measures that are being proposed by the Ministry of Education, first of all, before we even get to the nitty-gritties of what they are, your thoughts on, the fact that they're coming in at, when we get into the third term?
Thank you, Mike. I think there is no question of when it's the right time for something to be effected.
And to be corrected.
And to be corrected. Actually, an error should be corrected as soon as it's detected so that we avoid further damage to what probably could be occurring. Because this issue of ghost pupils and ghost learners is something that we've had to grapple with over time from 2003, as soon as FPE was introduced. Because since there were no mechanisms to ensure that you account for the resources that are being disbursed to the schools, there was likelihood that the green forms, whenever they are filled at the end of every month, that some numbers will be deflated for a single purpose, that capitation is based on the enrollment. So if you have got a high enrollment, then you have got a higher capitation. Yes, you have got more. Because for every child, there is a capitation that is allocated to that child. And so since it's been a practice that has been there, and there were no mechanisms to detect it and to stop it, I think that this is why it has always furthered. And sometimes we may be hearing of these numbers, but they could even be higher than what we're being told, that in the range of over 400,000.
Now, 450,000 is a huge, huge number.
Yes.
In any means and standards. Mr. Andiwo, how have 450 ghost learners, and this is the number that we know, maybe it could even be more according to what he says, how is it possible that they've remained in the system for that long?
I think that is why it is important to also reiterate that these reforms are long overdue. Because for the last decade or so, when we have been trying to implement the FPE, for instance, we would have expected that this...
And maybe just for the benefit of all of us, maybe you could just let us know what FPE is.
Or the free primary education, or some people call it the UPA, Universal Primary Education.
Yes.
I think we started this program in 2003.
Yeah.
And we were expecting that at least such kind of reforms that are coming now would have come even 2 years into the system. But it's never too late, because this is when we're working on them. It is unfortunate that we may have lost a lot of money as a country, because I know it has been a common, ministry officials have been talking about it, that they suspect that head teachers are inflating the numbers to be able to get more money. And then now, how they account for this more money, probably because the numbers are inflated in the records. So what I think would happen is that we were expecting that the ministry would have acted early enough. They didn't do it, but it is good that the minister and his team are working on it now. But what we may want to know is, can they be able to take us back and find out if these 420 are confirmed, which schools had the ghost learners and why, so that we should be able to hold certain people responsible, particularly those in leadership in that sector. Why were they inflating the figures, for instance? And then if we are able to do that, it is possible that even if we implement this system, they will be deterred from attempting to manipulate the system to inflate figures again.
All right.
Yeah.
Amos, how is, for instance, because one of the systems that is being proposed is the UPI, the unique personal identifier. How is that meant to work? Because given the system that we have had all along, each student has, especially when it comes to exams, each student has a unique, I forget what they call it, but there's a unique number that you use, which is unique to you, almost like an ID number, but for a student. So how is this going to be different?
This is going to be quite different because what we have in the current system does not, it's just a number. So there is no element of matching to see that you're referring to Mike, you're referring to Andiwo, and you're referring to Amos as a person. It's a little bit different, and it could mirror what we have in what we have as a KRA pin, which is very, very personalized to you. It could go to even to the extent of picking up biometrics for a particular learner, and there are more innovative ways of perhaps not even just using the finger, because sometimes you may even enroll children who are still young, for instance, in preschool, who are under 5, whom biometrics, like for instance, the fingers cannot read. So there is the use of the iris and the pupil, which has been deemed one of the most effective biometric that could be used to identify the particular learners. So this way, you have a situation whereby the only thing we had is that when children are enrolled into school, they are put in that enrollment register, which is just a book, and you have a name of Amos Kaburu. Now, how will you tell who is Amos Kaburu? We are a country which is dealing even with the issue of ghost workers. You have got a county that only has got 4,000 employees. Yes, yet it's unable to account for all these 4,000. They will be crying that we have 600, 1,000 ghost workers. So this is a real issue. And that's why the introduction of the unique people identification number is very, very critical. And it has even been tried out in other countries where it has worked. Maybe what needs to be beefed up on it is an issue whereby it is more integrated. For instance, the way we've seen the EU citizen wallet, where your records at the immigration are synced with what you have at HELB, are synced with what you have with the KRA and such. So that if you give to this child this unique number, they could, for instance, run with it for the rest of their lifetime. So if they are not there, they will definitely be deleted from the system. For instance, if a child dies, then it's reported with the registration of Department of Registration and of Birth and Death. You will have also to report the unique number to say that this child has therefore exited the life system, and therefore so their number is deleted. So it's just leveraging on the advantages of technology, which of course when we'll be looking at some aspects, it's not that technology per se is the solution, but at least it curbs some of these challenges to a big extent.
All right. And how is this going to be implemented? It sounds like a very elaborate and very expensive system, although expensive is relative given how much maybe will be saved once you root out the 420,000 over time. But how is this going to work out? Is it having like this biometrics taken as you're registering in each school? Then that gives you an identification number which you carry throughout your school life? Or is it an identification number that is given to specifically those who are going to sit for examinations?
Yeah, I think details are yet to come out because the proposals were just made the other day. We are yet to see the details of what the ministry is proposing. But what we expect is that, not like any time a learner joins a school, there's a number that you are assigned. You are tagged a number, and we call it admission number. We expect that this is now what is going to be your admission number.
And that admission number stays right through
your school life. And I think, as Amos is saying, it might even be useful to see how do you move this to the next level. Like say you are
primary
to secondary and even to university, so that we can be able even to track learners throughout. We see it will even be easier now to say in this particular school we can be able to confirm that this is the number that enrolled up to maybe this level, this is the number that had moved on to and transited to another level until you get to even higher levels of education. What now we'll have to do for the learners that are in schools currently, probably they will now have to assign them these new numbers as their fresh admission numbers, because I agree that sometimes the current system we use now, you have a number that somebody can change anytime.
You cannot link it to anybody.
And you don't link it to anything else. It's just your number. But it can be changed. That a class master can decide that maybe I want to change the numbers, or you are assigned another number, or a newcomer comes in, and you are assigned a number of a learner who left the school the other day. So that sometimes.
And in effect, what that means is that even if somebody wanted to sit for an examination for you, it's possible because the number is not linked.
It's not linked. So I think it can help a lot in terms of now trying to help us manage even examination period, and also when we do book distribution and even capitation grants. You can be able now to say, even for, because I think the other area that where we have been losing money is the issue of book distribution. We talk about the ratio, this number of books per learner or pupil book ratio, but we are not very sure of who is this pupil we are talking about. But now you can be able to say, in this particular class, because I'm able to identify all of them, I need this number of books because I'm going to assign. You are assigned the book based on the number that we can be able to trace very well.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Amos, one of the things, of course, that the ministry and the government is going to make a saving on is purely on, once we reduce the numbers, then obviously the funding goes down because these are ghost learners. Really, they don't exist. And there is a capitation that is attached to them. But how is that likely to affect, if in a positive way, and I would imagine it is, the quality of education? Apart from just saving money, what other effect is it likely to have on education?
Thank you, Mike. The effectiveness and efficiency of education is measured using what we agree as global indicators. And some of these indicators include enrollment rates, which we have both what you call the gross enrollment rate. That is all the children who are enrolled, or anybody who is enrolled in school, whether you are over age or what, they become part of the GER, which sometimes when it's computed could even be over 100%. Now we have another indicator which is called the net enrollment rate, and this now looks at the age-specific children who are in a particular system. For instance, for our primary, it will be 6 to 13 years. So we will, for instance, look at all the learners who are enrolled, how many are between 6 to 13 years old, so that we're able to get that these are the children who are in school at the right age. We don't have overage and we don't have underage. We also have got other efficiency indicators, for instance, wastage rate. When children repeat classes, what usually happens is that you spend resources twice or maybe even thrice of what you should have been spending. But yet you see in the current form, you are unable to tell how much of this wastage is happening. So when you introduce such a system, because we're moving away from blanket numbers of 12 million, 15 million, you're able to account for every child. So as Andiwo put it, you're able to see how many children enter into the system and how they progress into the system until how they exit. We have got lots of queries around the official data that is released by the Ministry of Education, and most stakeholders don't have a lot of confidence in such data, because sometimes you listen to the ministry will say that we have net enrollment of about 94%. Those of us who deal with sometimes data, we differ and say that no, we have about 10 to 12% of children who are out of school, and a percentage of 2%. When you're talking about 10 million children being in school, a difference of 1%, you're referring to 100,000 children. So it means that we are differing over very huge numbers when now we talk of absolute numbers. But the beauty of having this system allows us to track every child. So we're able to tell that, yes, the system, the number of children who have transited from primary to secondary is 60% or maybe 70%, because we are accounting for every child. We are not just dealing with the numbers and estimation of probabilities that if we had 700,000 sitting for KCP last year, and then we have got 400,000 spaces this year, we simply do 400 over 700 as a ratio, and we get maybe it's about 65% or what. So we're able to get absolute numbers, therefore increase on the efficiencies, because unless a system deals with issues around wastage, it becomes very difficult for us to tell on the quality of education that we have. So if we're able to fix some of these things, we still refocus on the issue of quality, because one of the questions becomes, who are these children who are repeating? Who are these children who are dropping out of the system? Are they overage? Are they underage? Are they children in what kind of profiles do they introduce? So if you're able to have an account, you can tell that Mike was in this school for only 3 years, but Mike entered school when he was 11 years old. And we know from research that overage have got more likelihood of dropping out of school. We know that Amos entered into school, he comes from a poor family. Because, by the way, if this system works, it's not just about putting in the number. There's so much that you can do with it. You're able even to include what you call profiling, the bio details that could as well be collected. And the beauty is that we are in an era where technology has really been liberalized. And sometimes even the unit cost of setting up such a system in a school will take you less than $100. I mean, less than 10,000. And really when you look at 10,000, that is capitation just like for around 4 or 5 children. Now we have a system where 95% of our public primary schools now have got access to electricity. We're increasing the power to the national grid, which means that the effectiveness of this approach is the chances of success are very, very high. So if we really invest well into it and close out on the areas where we've always had challenges of enforcement and support, for instance, the county directors of education and the sub-county level, so that there is a lot of integrity in what is being done, follow-up, so that it doesn't turn out to be a white elephant. I think that it really boosts the quality of education that we are providing.
All right, would you like to add on that, on how it's going to affect positively the quality of education?
I think one is it is going to be very easy for the ministry to manage the teachers. Because I think like now, if the number is over close to 500,000, I would say, because 420 is very close to 500,000. If that is the number that we have in the system, it means we are even talking about teacher shortages that we are not very clear about. Because this will mean that if we are able to weed out the ghost learners from the system, we can be able to determine the exact number of teachers that we need for the remaining number. That I think that is one, that will really help in teacher management. Number two, it will also be help in terms of learning materials and learning resources like the books. You will be able to know exactly, we need this number of books for this particular schools because of the numbers that we have, and then you can be able to track those needs moving ahead to the system. It's also going to be able to help in terms of monitoring learning. You can be able to know what kind of resources do we need to monitor learning progression. And also, when you're doing examinations, it will also help the Kenya National Exam Council to actually be sure of the numbers that they need to plan for, even before KCPE or before KCSE. So it's going to boost planning a lot. But I think what, again, we need to emphasize is that after we've confirmed the numbers, there are two things that need to happen. We must be able to maintain the integrity of that system. Because given the Kenya we know, if we cannot maintain the integrity of that system,
we still have
after a week, we'll have a problem. It will be manipulated. So I think education managers on the ground and the head teachers are going to be key in this. And if there's no mindset, because I think people who have been benefiting from a system that allows you to inflate numbers may not actually easily...
It may not be in their interest
to implement this change. It works. So,
and that, of course, would bring in now the next question of how is the implementation, how is it enforcement, rather? How is the enforcement that this is a system that is going to be put in place, and who's going to monitor that it works? Do we need now to employ other people who are purely there just to monitor?
I don't think so. I think one of the challenges we have in this country is over legislation. And the issue of the integrity of the system, as Andy was putting, it's very, very critical, because I was just doing a quick calculation here of 420,000. If you use a very, very rudimentary system of how we compute the pupil-teacher ratio, you're talking about these numbers requiring 10,500 teachers. Now you can imagine this is a huge number that you're dealing with. So it means that because it's not easily calculated that way, we could be having about 4,500 teachers or 5,000 artificial teacher shortage because of just the numbers that have been inflated. So we're referring to a system where what the government needs to do is to have a lot of stakeholder buy-in, especially devolution of these aspects, so that you build very strong school accountability mechanisms. Because I think this is where we fail to a large extent, when we centralize a lot of these decisions. But if it's done at the community level, communities begin to appreciate what is happening. Stakeholders, for instance, teachers begin to appreciate the role that this is going to play, and that there is nothing personal about what is happening at all. Of course, there are a few elements who will feel that this is something that is a bit targeting them because they will have been benefiting from the system. But the few people who have, the many people who have been doing the right thing will feel that this blanket condemnation that has been there, that we are inflating numbers, now have got every genuine reason to feel that they are doing the right thing. So I don't think that we require different kind of people to do this work. And for your instance, Mike, most of these challenges that we have around implementation are not problems down there. They are usually problems at the top. In fact, even when we deal with the issue of ghost learners, there's been rumored that there are even senior education officials, even at the ministry level, who collude with those schools and tell them that can you put that the numbers are this way? And therefore, they have a way in which they communicate, including the issue of the textbook, which the textbooks, which the CS had to put his feet down and to say that we are going to distribute these these books directly from the ministry, because the people who are benefiting are likely to be people at the top. Because let's deal with the small numbers. If you talking of our school, if I inflate the population of our school by 4 children, that means that I'm only going to get an extra capitation of 6,000 shillings.
I'll need to pause you right there because we need to take a short break. This is Kivumbi 2017. We're talking matters education. And remember, you're welcome to participate in this conversation as we carry on. We'll take a short break. We'll come back and we'll look at the quality of education. What does it really mean when we talk about the quality of education improving? And what are the measures that we can use to ensure that we are actually saying that education has improved? We'll be right back.